Hey Rob,
How you doing?
we are coming together today, you and me, to talk about first 100 days in labour, likely changes to employment legislation.
Yeah.
We're not legal experts, we're not employee relations
No.
or industrial relations experts, so we haven't got a view on everything. I think we've got some interesting points on some of the things.
Yeah, they definitely have implications for people experience, and I think for data as well, which is obviously something that's very close to our hearts.
So I think focusing on the data one first, because there's a couple of differences. So there's some which is intention, so things like right to disconnect is an intention for the Labour Party.
Yeah.
There's some other things where they've talked about we will make this legislation, or we intend to anyway.
Yeah.
So things like ethnicity pay gap reporting, disability pay gap reporting, that type of thing. I guess there's a challenge for most organisations when they're not holding that type of data. So they hold gender, of course they do, and they could do gender reporting.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts on that?
I think first of all, I really welcome the addition of reporting on other characteristics other than gender, because we find that a lot of clients are hold poor data, incomplete. They have a lot of gaps, and I think they're nervous about I guess pushing their people to complete their own data, to provide their own data. It's often based on self-service on their HR system, and they're also nervous about using it. And yeah, GDPR is important. It's there to protect us, but I think it's really a shame that companies are not using that data already more often to actually improve the experience of different people and different groups of people at work.
Yeah, and it makes such a difference as well. Like, I mean, when I think about things like other background elements, like working class background, geographic background, wealth backgrounds, I think there's a lot that people can do. And I've certainly seen with the GDPR stuff that people are worried about the purpose for holding the data, and that's why they haven't held it to date. If I do not have a purpose for holding it, then I should not hold the data. I should minimise data to ensure that I only hold the minimum I hold to deliver the job that I've got to do.
Yeah.
So I think actually with new potential legislation coming in, what we could start seeing is new lenses to look at the experience that people are having at work.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing is, if you don't hold that data, you're blind, right? You don't even know. Let's start with representation. You don't know who's in different, who you've got at different levels and different positions. So if you've got a goal or in diversity, to improve your representation of, say, women at different groups, so you're not at different levels. If you're not holding that data, you've absolutely no idea. Now, obviously, it's a little bit more obvious for gender. Other characteristics, it may not be so obvious, and you can still, you still can't always make assumptions. But the other side of it is actually then generating insights. The number of times that we've had to say to clients, well, this is what's going across the board, but we can't provide the sort of the real kind of insight, the colour. It's just like a big, the depth, if you like, to the insight, to say you've got different groups of people who have different different experiences. All we can often do is say, well, in this geography or in this business unit, people have got you're experiencing something different. If you've got no data about that, you just can't develop strategies.
I mean, I love data. I'm not a data scientist. That's why I'm not in your people science team. But I love jumping into data, and I love going into the analytics and looking at stuff. I also love the concept of the voice of the individual, the voice of one person that can make a difference. Because if I think about moments, what we do around moments, and we say that actually when you measure the moments that matter, you may only have one person go through that moment. You may only have one person in your organisation who identifies in a certain way or has a certain ethnicity. That one person's voice should matter. And when an organisation responds to an individual saying, this isn't working for me, that's quite powerful. And I also think it's quite powerful when people see that an organisation does that. I think the opportunity here is a fantastic one, where organisations can show they care And belonging is broader than gender, that belonging can be far broader, it can cover everybody.
Yeah.
And where you've got data where it's only a small group of people, you can actually start thinking about what matters to them and what's a differentiator for them.
It was a real sort of road to Damascus moment for me, was when we were, when we got through a number of clients, and I was seeing, oh, you've got a solid score there for belonging. And let's say, 80%. And what lies behind that 80% doesn't really matter. What we're saying there is it could be better. But what, if that was any other index, any other theme, we'd say, well done, that's really good. But with belonging, you kind of have to look at it and say, well, okay, how diverse is your organisation? If your organisation isn't very diverse, 80% might mean that like 100% of the sort of dominant group in your organisation is really, really, really feels that they belong, and everyone else doesn't. And if you don't know where those scores lie,
100% of white men aged 45 to 55
exactly.
feel they belong here.
Yeah.
Wonderful. That's amazing. Well done, you.
Yeah. And then some other people might not, but we don't know who they are.
Yeah.
That's just not really acceptable.
No.